get into some context stuff, it'd be great to be introduced to you all. So in really briefly, if we move around the meeting, introduce ourselves, and in a succinct soundbite, what your hopes for this network might be. So who you are, who you're representing, and what your hopes for this network might be. So when I shout your name, just pop yourself off mute, introduce yourself, who you are, who you're representing, and what your hopes for this network might be. And we are going to start with Peter Davis.
Hiya, good morning. To be honest, you say what I want from the meeting. I'm not quite sure because Jean's asked me to join the meeting and I'm not exactly sure what you do. So
that's fine.
Maybe after the meeting, I'll let you know. So
good one.
Thank you. It's nice to meet you all. And I'm coming in place of Donna now. She's not working with us at Street Angels anymore.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Kat.
Morning, everyone. My name is Kat Purcell. I'm one of the strategic leads of 10GM, which is a joint venture that supports voluntary, community and social enterprise infrastructures across Greater Manchester, of which Action Together is a founding member. My hopes for this network is that we have that complex but much needed conversation around what do we actually even mean by food solution. Are we talking security? Are we talking preventative work? And how do we join in all the work that's currently going on in Greater Manchester within the food landscape, which is absolutely massive?
Brilliant. Thank you, Kat. That's great. Elaine.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elaine Morgan. I work for the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, leading on the mayoral priorities around food insecurity. I think the hopes for my meeting, and it sort of alludes really to what Kat said as well, is, I suppose, learning what a locality is doing and how then that connects into the wider work of Greater Manchester, and also maybe where Greater Manchester Combined Authority could add value as well to the work that's going on in Oldham.
That's great. Thank you, Elaine. That's really useful. Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm the hub leader for Oasis. Geographically, we cover Hollingwood, Limeside and Clarksfield and Lees Brook. We currently offer ad hoc food support for some of our most needy families and support a couple of local food banks as well by doing collections via the school. But it'll be useful to network and just see how we can stitch together our services to make sure that our needy families are getting their needs met. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Great to meet you. Moving on to Hannah Williams.
Morning. Oh, good morning, everyone. I'm Hannah Williams from Oldham Council. I lead on Get Oldham Growing and coordinate the activities at the hub at Alexandra Park. I think my hopes initially for me are about making links, networking, making connections with those in this field of work. We're moving into more links with food security, supporting community growing. So for me, it's around making those connections, links with all of you guys, and where we can support or feed into that.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Hannah. That's brilliant.
Okay.
Anthony.
Yeah, thank you. Anthony Burke. I represent Saddleworth Rotary Club. We're extensively involved in raising money to support Oldham Food Bank, Impact Community Church, Madlow and others. I think my hope, which is a personal one in a sense, is to understand the context of what the network is all about, how it fits in the larger scheme of things, and how we can make a difference. And it seems to me that any thoughts we've had about making a difference since this morning are obsolete, with the rate of inflation running as it is, and the increases in fuel which are about to hit us. Mm. So for me, I want to understand the context. What is the need? How is that need likely to increase over the next period of time? And how can we make a difference? So I thought I'd start with a modest request.
No, that's great, Anthony. That's really useful. Thank you very much. Lovely.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Susan.
Hi, I'm Susan Asksbury from Family Action Food Clubs that run in Fittonhill and Hollandwood. My hope for this is to get better acquainted with what other people are doing in the area and to network and to hopefully share best practice so that we can all link together and do a combined effort for the people of Oldham. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. That's really helpful. Thank you. Sharon.
Hi, I'm Sharon. I'm the Programmes Manager here at Action Together. I work very closely with Rich. So one of my roles is to manage the grants and investments. So I'm here to find out what's happening in the network, what everybody's doing, and just getting to know everybody.
Thank you, Sharon. David.
Yeah, good morning. My name's David Saville. I lead Chadderton Community Church. We run a weekly food bank, local food bank from our premises. And I'm just here to just see how my little piece of the jigsaw fits into the big jigsaw.
Fabulous. Thank you, David. That's great. Leanne.
Hiya, I'm Leanne. I work for Great Places Housing. I've just started the role of Community and Partnerships Manager very recently. So really, I've joined today. I wanted to just find out a bit about what the network's about and how we can sort of get involved and help or support and work with partners, obviously for the benefit of our customers, but then for the wider communities around that as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Leanne. That's great. And Laura.
Hi everybody, Laura Windsor-Welsh from Action Together. So I have the pleasure of working alongside Rich and Sharon. So my hopes, I think, for the network are for us to help to bring together a space where we can help to grow and develop leadership from the voluntary sector around food security. But I think also, you know, Anthony, you really succinctly described some of the current challenges for families and people in Oldham around food. And my hopes this network is that we move, we discover and we really think about what the challenges are, but then we move into a space where we're kind of developing and designing the solutions together. So yeah, activation is one of my hopes really, and that kind of how we collaborate and do that together.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura. And just a pause quickly there. A lot of people have spoken about wanting to find out what this network's about and what it does. And the point in the refresh is it is about just what Laura's just mentioned there. It's about activation. And it's about what we want it to be about, to be fair. So because it's a refresh, we're in that wonderful space where we can shape and create something active that brings real solutions. Joanna.
Hiya, I'm Joanna. I work for the Methodist Church. I'm the circuit admin, and I produce a little food information sheet which I share amongst, you know, probably a few of you get it. I started off doing it when I worked at South Chad Church because I saw people coming in. They did a food bank, and there was a problem when people were coming in on a day when the food bank wasn't open, and I didn't know where to send them. So I just started to find out what was available in Oldham and produce like a monthly or quarterly information sheet, which I've just carried on doing really. I'm sorry about the picture. I've tried to go on my PC. That won't work, so I'm on an old laptop. So I just feel a bit weird. But Ike asked me to come along. She thought because of the little job that I did that maybe, you know, it would be interesting for me to link up with everybody else. So that's why I'm here.
Lovely to see you, Joanna. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Becky.
Hi, I'm Becky. I also work for Action Together, but I've been supporting the food bank for a number of months now. And unfortunately, I'm the only one available this morning to attend. But I think everybody's covered what we sort of hope to get out of it, that partnership, that connection, and some really practical solutions, I think, as well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Becky. Amanda, welcome. We're just introducing ourselves, who we are, who we're representing, and what our hopes for this network are.
Morning, everyone. Apologies, I'm late this morning. Yeah, Amanda, I'm from Oldham Council. I manage the Welfare Rights Service and all things kind of support related in terms of welfare reforms and any government grants that are issued. So very much connected to the community and trying to support people, and this is really relevant for me.
Fabulous. Thank you, Amanda. Great to see you. Niam.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nayan Joshi, Community Development Worker for Action Together. I also facilitate the Poverty Action Group in Oldham. So I came along to hear what everybody does and learn about what everybody does and how that links to the work we're doing at the Poverty Action Group.
Fabulous. Thank you, Nayan. Good to see you, Susie. Susie, we're just introducing ourselves, who we are, and what our hopes for this network might be.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I joined a bit late. My daughter's got COVID, so I haven't so far. But so yeah, I'm Susie. I'm the project manager for the Ancora project. I'm representing Keyring as a wider organisation because I'm a Keyring staff member. We work with quite vulnerable people that either contact us either by phone or via the email, or DWP will refer people. And yeah, there's quite a few people that are homeless or in need of emergency food, but their income just doesn't allow them to do things differently. And my hope, I suppose, is that we can support people to sustain a level of an ability to feed themselves in a way that works for them, rather than having to rely on food banks and stuff.
That's great stuff. Thank you, Susie. That's wonderful. I think I've covered everyone there. If anyone feels like I've missed them, just shout up quickly. So on to some context stuff. So there is a food strategy in Oldham, and the vision is set with this statement on the screen. It's what underpins the food solutions and security system in Oldham, and it's been articulated via that paragraph that's on your screen. And it reads, food in Oldham has the power to change lives through enabling communities to thrive, raising our aspirations, establishing infrastructure and innovative ways of working which consider the impact of the food system as a whole. The partnerships within this system work to establish a resilient food system that delivers food security for all, tackling inequalities, diet-related ill health, and the environmental impact of the food we produce and consume, whilst at the same time building prosperity through local wealth building, making Oldham a great place to live, work, and play. Sounds great, right? I must make a note at this point that there's an awareness within all of this and with the conversation that we're having. And as I think it was Anthony rightly pointed out, that the pandemic and austerity has had a dramatic impact on the strategy set to achieve this vision, and has hugely impacted on respective roles, your respective roles, our respective roles within the system, and the pressures that we've all experienced over the last 2 years as we've been operating in the crisis space. This refresh of this network is an opportunity to consider how together we might deliver on a strategy towards achieving this vision that's been set out before us, whilst operating still in that crisis response space, as well as seeking to find opportunities to be more proactive rather than reactive. So there are 3 delivery programs that sit alongside the Oldham Food Partnership. And these are held by the Food Partnership Board. And these are on your screen, Made in Oldham, Growing the Food Economy. That's Get Oldham Growing, which has already been mentioned, and Food Security. The governance and progress of this strategy is tracked through the Food Partnership Board. And the Oldham Food Partnership Board is a multi-agency partnership drawn from various partners and representatives from across the food system. This board gives oversight of food activity and supports shared ambitions. And by way of brief note on each of the main elements, holding in mind that the third will be one of the key priorities for this grouping, although the other 2 will absolutely play into our conversations as we refresh this network and grow together. Here is a recap on what the programs entail. And as I said at the beginning, I haven't made any presumptions or assumptions with any of this. So apologies if this is not new information to you. Just consider it a refresh, a little revise as we step on to activate this network and make some exciting things happen. So Made in Oldham at the top there, number one. The ambition for this theme is to build a prosperous and diverse good food culture in Oldham by building the food economy from farm to fork, nurturing and developing the sector. The aim is to improve local wealth, improving lifestyles and livelihoods, both now and in the future. Over the last few years, Oldham Council has commissioned a number of economic and regeneration focused studies and developed strategic development plans using specialist expertise and insight. Food, driven through leisure and hospitality, has been highlighted as a future economic growth area, and it's really interesting to hold on to that thought. Through the regeneration and capital projects in the town centre that many of us will have seen, this has begun to come to life. The development of the Town Hall and Parliament Square has enticed some of the usual suspects, the national and regional chains, and further development is planned through the Egyptian rooms. The mainstream casual dining sector here in Oldham aids Oldham's rebrand in the marketplace. There's much more potential to further use food and drink to drive food-centric placemaking activity. As the life-work balance is shifting post-pandemic, as the pandemic continues, town centres look to reboot themselves in this post-COVID world and create new identities. However, and this is a key point, the food and beverage, leisure and hospitality sector needs to be carefully dovetailed with local and independent good quality outlets to avoid the clone models we are witnessing elsewhere. Oldham needs to build on the wants and needs of local people, be accessible in range, quality, price, and be sustainable, but also be sufficiently different to compete with its neighbours. A fundamental goal here is to ensure that we create vibrant and diverse business opportunities that operate across the spectrum of society. Some will be more commercially focused, and others I think we're most concerned with will be more socially focused whilst remaining viable. Beyond commercially driven businesses, there are links being made with enterprise and food traditionally through food growing, and specifically Get Oldham Growing, that I'll come onto shortly, activity to create a wave of socially driven enterprises. However, food-based enterprises are hard to make financially viable, and many struggle to remain solvent. Oldham In Place Partnership, which has been developed through the Local Access Fund, the Local Access Partnership, is a great opportunity for Oldham to reimagine what is needed and help specifically support the social enterprise sector to develop and flourish. In addition to consumer-orientated businesses, the food system from farm to fork has the potential to add value through its supply chain. Local food production, processing, and manufacturing has a key role in prosperity. But with the dominance of global brand and finance control, historically, they lack much local autonomy. However, with a refocus on sustainable development goals, both large globally owned corporates and also those SMEs that are independently controlled can be useful partners to work with on their role within society in Oldham. So when building out the Made in Oldham theme, growing the food economy, it'll become more evident that there are obstacles in the current system that need to be overcome. For example, the lack of food infrastructure to enable short supply chains, which are key to keeping food affordable to the customer, but also viable for the producer to offer. When we move to more sustainable, quality and healthy offers, it increases the cost of production. And to overcome this, local food infrastructure provision is scrutinised. Some of this can be overcome through partnerships working, such as local processing infrastructure, distribution networks, or hubs. And this is something that will apply to this network and is definitely an interesting area of development as we look to activate this network and go forwards. As, for example, it's been seen through the Oldham School Meal Service that it's possible for some larger local operators to act as distribution networks to enable smaller specialist food providers to access wider markets. Food markets play a key part in bringing more operators together, working on mutually beneficial projects to overcome these barriers. For example, e-commerce platforms and delivery shared services. These hubs can take many different forms, but the most successful are those that grow organically through finding shared solutions, which are typically a physical and digital combination. Hubs which are designed without being co-produced or addressing a largely evidence-based local need generally fail. Working strategically but opportunistically with the food sector is key to operating cost effectively, whilst being impact driven and realistic, but offering real value through expert knowledge and skills, which add value to operators and help them find solutions in new and often unfamiliar areas. You'll see a lot of stuff through this presentation and through a lot of the conversation that we'll have in the next little while that really focuses on that co-production and information sharing, local information sharing, that local rootedness. Interestingly, many people have taught themselves how to cook through online content during lockdown, and through the Made in Oldham brand, there is an ambition to broaden out and share different food heritages and histories in a manner which unites and builds a shared passion and a culture of good food in Oldham. When looking at the Made in Oldham programme, it's important to consider the farmer, processor, manufacturer in understanding how we can enhance local prosperity through the supply chain. I was interested to learn that Oldham has 78 farms keeping livestock. It's not known how many of these animals end up being consumed in Oldham, but with EU exit and climate change, what we eat needs to be more in step with what we produce to enhance food security. And the Made in Oldham programme is considering various pilot projects, looking to see how we can work with more local producers and then link them with public sector procurement in order to build a local prosperity and that all important third priority on your screen, food security. So now briefly on to Get Oldham Growing before we move together onto food security. It's great to hear briefly an introduction from Get Oldham Growing earlier. Get Oldham Growing, and do correct me if I say anything that's out of off turn. The aim of Get Oldham Growing is to build community cohesion, skills, and improve mental health and physical health through participation in food and land-based activity. Good to see you there, pop up, Hannah, just to scrutinise me. Food growing is a sociable and accessible activity which directly and indirectly improves health and well-being, and it helps build essential life and employment skills and makes best use of assets across the borough. The Get Oldham Growing programme is purposed to inspire, to engage and develop community knowledge and skills around food growing, building on the great work being done across the various growing sites throughout the borough. Hannah's still nodding, so I'm doing well so far. The focus of Get Oldham Growing programme is on informal and semi-formal growing sites, which build on domestic growing skills, but in a collaborative, community-focused manner, growing a network of skilled growers as individuals or collectives. Oldham has a number of eco-hubs around the borough, which are awesome assets. These assets are all run with a large amount of autonomy. They're led by a few focused community leaders with some support from council officers, Hannah representing the latter. There is scope for the Get Oldham Growing programme to be developed, focusing around volunteer engagement and support to increase the levels of participation across the various growing sites across the borough. And I know that through some of the development work I've observed within the Action Together over the last 9 months, that this is happening wonderfully. There's a strong focus through the Get Oldham Growing programme on health and well-being through food growing. Being in nature, physically active, and a sense of social inclusion are all elements that have been proven to enhance well-being and health within participants. The diversity and high levels of footfall seen in some of Oldham parks have formed the basis of developing this into growing themed physical activity. Links with social prescription and the local healthy weight strategy, layered with existing projects, provides a strong foundation in which to grow a network of people who get their hands dirty. Volunteering can help maintain the feeling of self-worth and offer important social contacts, and that can counteract the negative psychological effects of social inclusion that we've particularly seen as a result of the impact of COVID-19. The impact of COVID-19 has also resulted in many job losses, and it's important to provide a service that seeks to help people maintain their positivity and outlook so that they may re-enter work when opportunities present themselves. Maintaining routine, being valued in society, and having access to food whilst developing new skills is progressive even in challenging times and can give people a focus beyond their immediate need. This programme works closely with social prescribing practices, and as such, it can be tethered to existing pathways and referral partners. Through this programme, those involved with the partnership, the food partnership, hope to foster food citizenship and grow a local good food movement. I will pause there. Hannah, did I miss anything?
No, I mean, amazing representation of what we do.
Fabulous.
Thank you. No, yeah.
Obviously, there's going to be lots of space in the coming months as we refresh this network to talk more about Get Oldham Growing and how it feeds into the food system and how particularly the sector can be a part of that. But love it. Thank you, Hannah. We're going to cover food security in greater depth, number 3, shortly. But first, I wanted to pause on the mission of Oldham Food Strategy. So I started you off with the vision. Here we go. Here's the mission on your screens. And the mission is to build a good food culture in our communities, put sustainable food production and consumption at the heart of the food system planning and design, ensuring that we use cooperative approaches to find solutions and adaptations and focus on where we can facilitate, control and deliver most value in line with our vision. A mixture of approaches across all sectors at all levels and considering every link in the chain. Food is cross-cutting. Different ingredients, methods, tools and infrastructure yield very different results. Some of what we'll be looking to develop will be tried and tested recipes. Others will be test-baked from our experiences and local know-how. What a wonderful metaphor. Oldham is an ambitious and innovative borough, but is also resource constrained, and therefore a blend of approaches is called for. So as you'll hopefully have deduced, the mission is achieved by the 3 programme streams that I've highlighted and briefly covered for you, bar the food security section, which I will uncover shortly. Someone in the introductions asked how everything works and where everything fits into. So by way of recap and refresh, just on the screen for you is the delivery structure for the Oldham Food Partnership. The following is how the strategy that I'm unpacking for you this morning is acted on in practice. And you will see the 3 programmes at the bottom of your screen: Made in Oldham, Get Oldham Growing and Food Security. And the triangulated partnership structure that I try to articulate for you visually basically covers how we could coordinate the activity and action around the strategy and forms what is known as the Food Partnership. By way of brief overview, the old Food Partnership Board, which I mentioned earlier, that sits at the top of that triangle, shapes the vision and drives the activity by driving forward strategic policies relating to food, providing regular guidance to the whole partnership, monitoring the Food Partnership's progress against an action plan, overseeing the management of relevant budgets and other resources, sharing knowledge, raising awareness and developing support for the Food Partnership and its work, and being an advocate for the Food Partnership in other board meetings and or forums. And as you will see shortly, a priority in all of this is food security, and that's something that was a thread through most of your introductions. And as such, a working and or oversight group has been formed to look at this and carry some work forward on the 3rd programme, which is food security. And so that's where you'll see the Oldham Food Security Group on the bottom right-hand corner of the triangle. You'll notice what's supposed to be a plate with the words alternative food distribution program support floating off to the right hand of your screen. And really briefly on this, some of you may be aware, others may not, but a mini tender process has taken place supported by Public Health to commission an external provider to support the building of skills and capacity of our local food sector and networks based upon existing experience, knowledge and skills and willingness, capacity, capability to develop models away from the emergency food aid and exploring what would be possible with the network. The aim is that this will be done through co-production, gleaning from experience within and insight from elsewhere. And there will be more on this to come in the coming weeks. So do stay connected to this network and to all the activity of the food partnership as we try and get the wheels moving a little more over the coming weeks and months. And finally, this group on the bottom left of the triangle. To date, the Oldham Food Solution Network has been a multi-agency partnership led by Oldham Public Health Team, and it's drawn from various partners and representatives from across the food system. But it's become apparent that there's a need to place this group within the VCFSE space and coordinate it around those within the VCFSE who are contributing to the food system in some way. And hopefully that's why you're all here. And it's my hope that we can work together over the next 6 months to develop this network to become that one that is, as was articulated by Laura earlier, active, one that is purposeful, and one that is purpose-driven. And within that, one that is connected via two-way traffic and two-way insight traffic to the partnership via the Food Security Group and the Partnership Board. So if I was being fancy with the illustration, I would have drawn all sorts of arrows on there to illustrate two-way partnership, but I think you get the intention. On the theme of being activated, I wanted to highlight what will be our primary priority in the next 6 months. Whilst I say our primary priority, that's not to decry from Made in Oldham and Get Oldham Growing, because they will absolutely feed into food security. But as we refresh over the 6 next months and develop, the third program theme that we will prioritize is food security. There's a little statement that I love around what food security could be. I'm sure that we could have a whole session debating that one and finding other ways of articulating it. But there on the screen, it says food security exists when all people at all times have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life. Much of the work done in this area has, if we're honest, been reactive. It's been driven by the need to assist people in poverty. COVID-19 has highlighted this challenge in ensuring people in food poverty do not go hungry. However, people experiencing poverty is now an even larger problem, as Anthony rightly pointed out, coupled with poor diet and the link between obesity and COVID-19 mortality. The importance of tackling food poverty and improving the healthiness of diets has never been more poignant. The triangle model that you'll see on your screen is possibly a little simplistic, but following a review of the food landscape in Oldham, it seems a useful model which can be used to bring partners and stakeholders together over a common aim, with an eye on mechanisms which can be used to seek to tackle food poverty and move to food security. There is a focus on 4 key elements, and there they are on your screen. At the top, food culture, second down, education and skills, then food access, and finally, the big section at the bottom, food aid. What is on your screen is a rough depiction of the current position in Oldham. The following is a brief summary of what's meant by each of the headings and what the landscape in each identified heading currently looks like. I must add at this point that it's my hope, and hopefully the hope of many of you, that this network will absolutely contribute to the insight needed to determine what the landscape looks like at any given time and ensure that the picture is current. And that will be done through regular conversation and networking. So at the bottom, food aid, the largest and most significant area of focus, being made available in many forms in many locations across the borough. And a number of you in this meeting absolutely represent this space. Second up, food access. There are many different outlets operating in Oldham, from food banks, wider food redistribution schemes and social models to all the way through to mainstream retail. The food retail industry in Oldham is largely dominated by a duopoly from Tesco and Asda. In addition to these areas, public sector and anchor institutions, catering services are key to ensuring all residents have access to good food throughout their daily lives. Beyond the built environment, adequate systems to ensure strong uptake of Healthy Start vouchers, free school meals, community food and other provision to ensure children start well, live well and age well across Oldham are all a key part of this food access block. Third up, second down, education and skills. Skill level is considered in commercial and domestic terms and formal and informal education routes. Skill level and learning varies significantly across the borough. Some food skills are passed down through generations, others aren't. But when these skills are lost, we need to ensure people reacquire them. We need to ensure people can budget, get the best value for their budget, prepare and cook food in a manner which provides a healthy and nutritious diet. And then finally, the little peak at the top, food culture. One of the biggest obstacles to overcome it is the interest in food and passion for good food when convenience, headspace and cost are such big factors. The pandemic has given rise to more people cooking from scratch, eating as a family and using local provision. Passion for good food cooked from scratch is the default for many in the borough, but conversely, the opposite is also true, with people solely looking at food as fuel. Through the promotion of holistic, healthy food cultures, through schools, hospitals, care homes, nurseries, workplaces, and so on, we can begin to build components of good food culture, layering them and increasing individuals' exposure to good food that develops to be appealing, tasty, affordable, convenient, sustainable, and healthy. The primary ambition of the partnership and therefore of this network should be to strive towards a more secure model than this. To build a more secure food system, we have to look to flip this pyramid into a model which is more just, a model which is more sustainable, and a model which is more financially viable. And Kat, you briefly touched on this in your introductions. Flipping the pyramids, a phrase that we use at Action Together, designing out poverty. I love that phrase, one of my favorites. Part of the purpose behind the refresh and refocus of this group needs to be a focus on transition to a solution that seeks to build a system which is more resilient and robust through the reduction of demand on food aid projects. The Food Security Steering Group, that third element on the bottom right of the triangle that I showed you earlier, reporting to the Food Partnership Board, has been assembled to begin working on this shift, but it's all of our business, as Laura intimated in her introductions, and something that this network is purposed to provide insight and action on. Within the flipped mechanism that you can see on your screen, the four headings take on a very different and more positive meaning. Culture, right there at the top, the bigger one. Culture has Oldham has a diverse population with diversity in food, culture and heritage. We need to embrace this and bring together food-based values which people are passionate about. Through authentic sharing of food cultures within and across communities, we can build appreciation and a deeper understanding of how we can unite people through food, improving diets and practices which are healthier, less wasteful, affordable and locally rooted. We must consider the strength and skills within our communities. There's a wealth of knowledge, but most people still have a lot they can learn from each other. For example, cooking for single households or cooking for 3 generations in a household, how to buy food to get the best value, how to make the food you eat healthier, cooking for children or the elderly, convenience food for people on the go, which is cheap and nutritious. Life's change and so do individual needs. We all need different things in our lives at different stages, and as such, our food knowledge and skills needs to expand to ensure Oldham residents and the businesses that serve them can help ensure that we have all people have physical and economic access to sufficient, safe and nutritious food that meets their dietary needs and food preferences for an active and healthy life now and in the future. And this is where The other two programs come into security. So programs such as Get Oldham Growing and Made in Oldham are significant contributors to this work area, to the culture, the food culture area. Education skills, community-based education and more formal education opportunities need to match the breadth and depth of the ambition around food across the borough. Formal qualifications to enhance the catering, leisure and hospitality sector, coupled with on-the-job training, will help businesses succeed and provide good employment opportunities. And remember, that identified growth industry within food was around the leisure and hospitality sector industry. Strong business management and sustainability skills in the food sector will become increasingly important now and in the future. And at a community level, possibly the interest for the majority of us here on this call, the provision of food courses which help people budget, plan and shop for their food, as well as how to know how to cook it, are particularly useful where those skills have previously been lost. Making training and development accessible and inclusive through the use of online videos, physical sessions at community centres, and engaging the business community enables as many people as possible who would like to access information in different ways to get involved. Teaching people how to cook is resource intensive, and due to the complex nature of people's lives, this isn't always successful, as behaviours and habits are often ingrained. A range and blend of resources and opportunities that are easy to access, blended with snippets of useful information and other programs and schemes, will help reach people in a range of ways. And the penultimate theme in this reverse pyramid, food access. Food access is concerned with the ability to source food which is affordable, nutritious, and meets the religious and cultural needs of the consumer. Food provision across the borough needs to be mapped against need. Increasing numbers of people are in poverty, and as such, mainstream retail is insufficient in meeting the affordable needs of the population and those who operate within that bottom triangle. Aid will know this more than most. A range of opportunities to source food more cheaply, stretching budgets, have been developed, many of which are present in Oldham, such as food surplus redistribution models. And this includes membership schemes like the bread and butter thing, and pantries stocked by Fair Share, as well as community fridges stocked through local food donations. These redistribution models are essential with assisting people to move beyond emergency food provision and find a route out of crisis towards security. The next stage in developing a more robust food access model is to consider what and how we purchase food. As previously mentioned, a significant amount of food retail spend goes to Tesco and Asda. Increasing the range and diversity of food retail, especially in smaller format stores, working along the principles of neighbourhood planning, could look to provide a greater social return to consumers in Oldham. The range and availability of foods for different cuisines is quite fractured, grouped in retail by ethnicity rather than food category. And for the Oldham population to have a diverse and integrated food culture, more could be done to merge food offerings based on the type of food rather than the ethnicity of the consumer. Stores catering for a wider customer base will potentially access foods at a better price in bulk, break down marketing and branding stereotypes, giving rise to more food purchasing freedom, choice, and personal control. And there's a role here for increasing the number, the format and structure of food businesses operating commercially or, interestingly to our sector, as social enterprises, to fill the gaps identified through neighbourhood planning principles. The last sector-specific aspect to consider is the role of food clubs providing hot meals to people in communities to reduce isolation. They are particularly effective in reducing malnutrition and feelings of loneliness in older people, new parents, and refugees and asylum seekers. Provision of these food clubs and their target communities need to be mapped to better understand who they're catering for and what impacts they have on their local communities. By providing greater understanding of their local population and the needs they are serving will help them position themselves more effectively to receive funding from charitable donors. And finally, the hopeful smaller section on this reversed pyramid, this flipped pyramid. Food aid. Food aid in the borough is to support people in crisis, offering emergency food parcels and so on. To reduce the medium and long-term need on crisis support, the food security group has been formed, and food security is absolutely a priority. for us as a network as we go forwards. So food security, third programme that I have promised to unpack for you briefly. The vision for food security in Oldham. Ultimately, within this priority programme of food security, the vision is clear. We want Oldham to be a place where all people on your screen enjoy a culture of shared learning around food, understand what is a good diet, have access to healthy food, have the ability and skills to buy and cook healthy food, are offered a choice of support options, for example, food pantries, growing hubs, local co-ops, and so on, and are able to make healthy choices. In order to achieve the vision, to put the strategy into practice and to start shifting towards a space where the system is more secure in Oldham, this network, one, existing, and two, being one that is activated, is really important. And to that end, I'm going to chat to you really briefly around how we might activate this network. A refreshed food solutions network will bring together VCFSE organisations working in the food system at varying levels in Oldham to meet regularly, to share insights, to inform decision making, and to work collectively. And this is a really key section in answering that "what is this and what will it do" question that some of you asked in your introductions. As communities and individuals move towards recovery, it's important for this network to begin to give consideration to its purpose and model for collaboration. This co-design process will be ongoing beyond this meeting as part of the network development, but what follows serves as a benchmark from which we can progress. This network space will be one of action and intention, a space where VCFSE organisations can form solutions that they would be unable to achieve on their own, a space where strength in numbers can influence system change. And that is the magic of collaboration. So the action methodology to support the development of collaborative networks like the Food Solutions Network, Action Together, has developed the methodology illustrated by the double diamonds in the graphic on your screen. And some of those words were mentioned by Laura in her introduction and her dream, her hopes for this network being one that is an active network. Beginning with discovery, with discover, there's a little explanation, little definition of each of the words in the double diamond to the right of your screen. The first diamond helps people understand rather than simply assume what the problem is. It involves speaking to and spending time with people who are affected by the issues. Define, definition. The insight gathered from the discovery phase can help us to define the challenge in a different way. On to developing, to the second diamond, encourages people to give different answers to the clearly defined problem, seeking inspiration from elsewhere and co-designing with a range of different people. And that's going to be the beauty of this network, why I'm really excited about activating it and seeing what comes out the other end as we move to deliver. Delivery involves testing out different solutions at small scale, rejecting those that will not work and improving the ones that will. In each stage of the double diamond model, investment will be key, and I hope that the network will be in a position quickly to consider how it might effectively and diligently apportion investment, and by investment I do mean financial investment, in each stage of development in order to achieve some real progress in achieving greater security within the Oldham food system. Whilst we're refreshing this network, there's been a great deal of work done by previous iterations of the network, which I know many of you will have been part of, and other groupings within the food partnership. So we developed the network confidently, knowing that we are within the second diamond, but whilst also acknowledging that we may want to revert back to some of those aspects of the first diamond. But we are definitely within the second diamond when it comes to some of the challenges around food security. So on to activating the network and a concept that we're exploring around foundation groups. And this may be appropriate for some of you and less appropriate for others. So as part of some of the network development work that we're undertaking at Action Together with our colleagues in the sector, we've begun to begun tentatively modelling an approach that involves larger thematic networks like this one being driven by foundation groups. Within the context of a network, a foundation group is purposed to nurture and drive the work of network members. It'll be working alongside, so I'll be working alongside this network to form an identified lead group of our organisations that will become the foundation group for the Food Solutions Network. There's a degree of fluidity around how a foundation group can operate, but in the context of this network, it will support the challenge I set a few moments ago around investment, as the group will eventually hold a budget of potentially around or upwards of 30k. The foundation group will be supported by Action Together to help meaningful work grow. The foundation group will define the purpose and engage the wider network, so all of you in consultation around this. And the foundation group will act on the insight and intelligence gathered through the network to develop meaningful actions. To a degree, the foundation group will be self-selecting. There may be some groups that need a little nudge to stick a digit in the air and nominate themselves. And I'll send out more information around foundation groups and how you might be involved as a follow-up to this session. So pressing on the horizon, we're hitting the home straight here. Thank you so much for patiently listening. And I know it's a lot of information, and obviously you may need the notes at the end of this meeting to fill in any gaps that you might have as you've sat there and consumed. On the horizon, the Food Solutions Foundation Group workshops. So from this meeting, thank you, Kat, great to see you. From this meeting, I'll be scheduling a number of workshops for a foundation group to begin working on activating the network. And this will work alongside a 6-month plan that will begin in February and run through to August. From today, I hope that we will have more regular, great to see you, Laura, thank you. I hope that we'll have more regular network gatherings. Beginning in February, the network will meet bi-monthly, with activities taking place in the foundation group, across other parts of the food partnership, and of course in your respective spaces within the food system. And then just a note on the system fragility. There's an acknowledgement here that the system is fragile and there is a pressing need to act on the security agenda. The process to bring in additional support with the alternative food distribution program is currently in process and should be complete very soon, but with work commencing alongside the planned development of this network. The hope and motivation behind all of this is to have the strength in numbers and collective insight to enable those within the food system in Oldham to move to a space where we can be more proactive than reactive. So on to a brief bit of interaction as we draw this time together to a close. It'd be remiss of me to let a conversation about the food system go without mentioning takeaways. It'd be really helpful in crafting the next steps for the development of this network if our insight was as up to date as possible. So for a few moments, let's work together on some takeaways using Mentimeter. I don't know how many of you have used this before. It may not work for some of you. I have an alternative if you struggle. So take a note of the questions on the screen. What challenges are you facing in the VCFSE food system at the moment? And what's going well in the VCFSE food system at the moment? And some of you might, great to see you, Chris. Some of you might want to use your camera on your phone to scan the QR code, or you can follow the link. And I'll post the link in the chat too. And some of you might want to stick some of your reflections to these questions into your keyboards and it will appear on your screen. If you're struggling with Mentimeter, then feel free to stick them in the chat. So I'm just going to pop up Mentimeter. Lack of affordable food. Great one from Susan there, sourcing regular healthy food and volunteers. Less donations. So when I spoke about the fragility of the food system and the food security system earlier, that is absolutely a trend that organisations and large organisations like FareShare, for example, are experiencing, that there are less donations. Awareness of what is available, increased need, absolutely. And Anthony touched on that, didn't he, in his introduction? Joanna's saying poor quality donations, not healthy, doesn't make a meal. Things donated are not what people would choose to consume. Unhealthy food is only one part of needs. Mental health, a barrier to access of good foods, absolutely. Poor transport and system and distance to affordable food is a challenge. What's going well in the VCFSE food system? Fantastic community action, absolutely. Collaboration. Thank you, Abu. Yeah, it's great. Being able to offer appropriate food. Increased awareness of needs and issues. Passion and enthusiasm to support individuals and their families, a willingness to collaborate with a myriad of partners, diverse partners involved. Very exciting when you're considering the refresh of a network to see the word collaboration and partnership in there. The food info sheet shows there are places to access food help every day of the week, which is fantastic, absolutely. Abu's identified the partnerships across the public, private and voluntary sector, which is absolutely right. Providers also starting to look at the wider needs of the users to support further. And that's great, isn't it? And absolutely where things like Get Oldham Growing and Made in Oldham come into the mix. Moving forward with this network, looking forward and positivity. Gold star for whoever put that one. So thank you so much for bearing with that. And for those of you that are still here for battling on to the end, that's great. I know it's a lot of information and a lot of detail within all of that. But hopefully that's helped to set the context for you all. Kind of, I talked about the benchmark, set the benchmark for our work going forwards. So the idea with this network is that, as we shared at the start, and as hopefully has gone right the way through that presentation, is that it's one that's active. I know it's strange to talk about an active network when you've spent this meeting very much inactive and sitting and consuming, but I think it's important to set your stall out when you start these things and when you look to refresh these things. So the next steps are to gather together those who'd be interested in that foundation group and what that might look like. I'll be sending out the next the schedule for the next meetings for the next 6 months, those bi-monthly network meetings, so that you're aware of when they're coming up. But the hope with the foundation group and with activating between meetings is that there will be action as well as developing the network, that there'll be action in the next 6 months, so that we don't feel like we kind of have to wait another 2 months before we see each other on the food theme of food security and food solutions. So that is all from me. I know that I've spoken at you for a long time with some brief breaks to hear your own voices and to have your own thoughts. Are there any kind of closing thoughts, comments, reflections, questions? I can't promise to have the answers, and I will absolutely promote the collaborative element of this work and encourage others of you to answer any questions where I don't have the answers. But are there any closing thoughts? Elaine, go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I think it's great, and I think there's loads of work going on. I just wonder if there's that many groups that you will be expecting people to, represent, be representative on all these different groups, and yet they're struggling with capacity anyway. I just wonder if there's any way we could streamline it a little bit, because you can see how everyone's just got, we have it very similar with the Greater Manchester Food Security Action Network as well, where actually the people who are leading on it are also on the front line. So we just try and make sure it's streamlined as much as possible, just because we're fully aware that, they're probably their passion and enthusiasm is more about the delivery on the ground rather than just attending meetings. So it looks great, but I just think it's quite demanding on people to attend all those different groups.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting reflection. I think in terms of the streamlining, yeah, I think when you're on the ground and delivering, you absolutely don't want to be attending lots of meetings where there's a lot of talking, and so that's the kind of intention behind the action thing. Part of the investment into foundation groups includes investment into the time that it takes to be within that foundation group. So the foundation group model could, kind of following discussion, include that some of that representation is paid to be there, essentially, so that becomes a core function of the work. So the work is delivery, but actually the work is how often in our sector do we have so much intelligence and insight that we give away for free, these things. So that is kind of part of the thinking behind foundation groups, and something that I'll unpack when I.
No, that's fine. And it wasn't a criticism. I just think that's what we get, not complaints about, but people saying all the time, we'd love to attend this, but actually, we're actually at the food bank. Someone mentioned it earlier, saying I'm the only one that can attend because everyone else is sort of on the front line. The other quick thing I wanted to mention is his own mention about collation of data.
Yeah.
So you've got your insights and your qualitative data, and what your more sort of your bigger, food bank organisations are very good at is collecting data, like the Trussell Trust. Yeah. And I just think that is a big issue that possibly we need to tackle in terms of the VCFSE tech as well, how we support them to start collating sort of more data that will be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something in this kind of refresh of this network and others where we kind of actually use some of the capacity of Action Together and others to bring alongside people who can do that data collation, and either as a kind of research piece or an SROI piece or whatever, to ensure that's there and to ensure the systems. And I guess often the reason data comes out last is because, again, it's back to your point about time.
Having the resources to do it.
Yeah. So there are, again, on the horizon, well, not just on the horizon, in front of our faces, those opportunities to connect with those who could do that for us, and through our partnerships. And I think that's why, that's that strength in numbers element that is often missed from these types of networks. You tend to have the most passionate people in the room, and we kind of all say our piece, but then between meetings, not much else happens.
Exactly.
And so I'm really keen to drive that between meeting activity. So today we haven't had the opportunity to share a lot because it's been an information dump, but I hope that between now and when we meet again in a couple of months, there'll be a whole stack of activity that will be coordinated between all of us.
Great, thanks, Rich.
Right, Elaine, thank you.
Could I perhaps give you some feedback? I think I can understand most of what you've been saying.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, you need to appreciate the quantity of what's being presented.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I need to get my head around understanding that.
Yeah.
But then there's a step for me, which is having understood, how can one get involved in a meaningful and practical way?
Yeah.
And I think there's a danger for me that we're going to go from that level of understanding and miss out.
Yeah.
Now, certainly from my perspective, a contribution can be made.
Yeah.
I suspect I'm going to need some help in terms of that. Some of the points that were raised, I think the community collaboration, the passion, the support, all of that is there.
Yeah.
But it needs help in being focused, targeted and directed. And I don't yet get a sense of how that might happen.
Yeah. That's really, thank you,
But that's an appeal and a request.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Anthony. And no, and yeah, I totally appreciate it. And I had some anxiety about dumping a load of information on you all this morning, but I just and which is why I'll also follow it up with a kind of written synopsis of what I've shared, and kind of, you know, as many different formats as possible for you to digest. And absolutely, I think the purpose of activating this network is to be able to work with you as individuals as well, to be able to connect, because we all appear into these meetings at different levels, don't we? And from very different backgrounds, and with very different levels of insight, knowledge, kind of, some of us can see all how the system connects and what's going on in different meetings, and others of us, this is, for some of you, it'll be the first time you've heard of some of this information and things like that. So Anthony, that appeal is fallen on active ears, and I'd love to have a conversation with you to explore some of those points further.
Yeah, I'd welcome that, Rich. Thank you.
Brilliant, absolutely. And that really is my intention with this network, is that those between meeting conversations happen, and that they don't just happen, but then they're connected back in, which I think is something that you kind of hoped in what you just explained there. Thank you, Anthony, that's brilliant. Okay, folks, well, it's been absolutely lovely to see you all, and thank you so much to those of you who've made it to the end. You've got the gift of 10 minutes of time, happily given from me. Do get in touch with me on that email address that's in the chat. I'll just hanging this meeting on for a little while so you can copy that down. Absolutely, any thoughts, reflections, comments, or even concerned, good one, Susie, would be great there. And I really appreciate your honesty as well, as Anthony just honestly shared there. It'd be great to hear from you all, if possible. If not, you expect an email from me at some point with next steps and further actions. Lovely to see you all. Stay well, enjoy that food for thought, and I'll see you again soon.